Small number of them have what it takes for a job. I don't want them to have a certificate. I want them to have competencies. I want them to have skills, because this is what market needs.
People from the Orange Knowledge Program, they are people working in difficult contexts, looking for solutions. And we are an organization that's practice-oriented, and we want to provide solutions. But the only solutions that work are solutions that come from the people who are affected by those solutions and who understand the context. So we always have to be very careful to not provide one-size-fits-all solutions. And the participants also we really have to tell them, you are in charge of your program, you are in charge of your problem, and also in charge of your solutions.
This project gave me an opportunity to look around the entire country in general to see the gender dynamics in the different institutions. We could also get the chance to make the intervention and to also develop some roadmap for creating their institution more gender responsive and to be more transformative toward gender equality.
People who was here maybe 20 or 25 years ago, they are currently in senior positions. If we find a way to create platforms or other means to engage all the people that have been here, because they can provide a very strong network.
Hello, everybody. To all participants, a warm welcome at this fourth session of the Orange Knowledge Program partner events, organized again this year by NAFIC and its collaborating partners. Subject for this session is how to measure impact and contributions of OKP projects and training programs towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Arman Gaikema. I will be your moderator for this session, and I will do this together with Lieselotte Pellens, who is my colleague and who will manage the chat box and question and answer and discussion sessions. We work both as country program managers for the Department of Global Development at NAFIC. Before we start, I have to explain you some house rules, how to participate in this session through this Zoom platform. To have a smooth running of this of the presentations and also of the discussions, I kindly ask you to keep the following rules in mind. Your mic has been muted. Please use the chat box if you have a question. The entire session will be recorded. If you do not want to appear on the screen, please turn off your video or leave the meeting. If your connection is lagging, please turn off your video. You can still hear it then. When asking questions, please stay on the topic. If you have a specific question on the Orange Knowledge Program that is not dealing with this topic, let us know through okp@nafic.nl or your regular contact in your country or at NAFIC. We could invite participants to explain something through the mic. In that case, you will be asked to mute. When sharing on your social media, please use the following social media contacts and addresses. Before we start, please know that this session is one of the sequences of the OKP partner events titled Shared Challenges and Opportunities, Present and Future. In the coming week, we have more sessions presented online dealing with different aspects of the Orange Knowledge Program. For a timetable, we start with 3 presentations showing different aspects and cases of impact monitoring. We start with a presentation of Yoli Franca, also working at NAFIC. She will explain the monitoring and evaluation framework in which OKP projects and training programs are operating. Second presentation will be done by Marlene Roefs and Caroline de Salos of Wageningen Center for Development Innovation. They will present a number of examples from projects from Indonesia, Uganda, and South Africa. And then a third speaker will be Gigi Limpens, representing Maastricht School of Management. She will present a case on long-term impact measurement through panel studies. And then after that, we will have a number of poll questions and a discussion on the basis of some key questions which we shared already with you earlier this week through an email, and then that will be the end. Good. Next slide. Yeah, before we start with the presentations, I would like to introduce some poll questions to know a bit more the background of the participants, also to get a better picture of why you joined the session. So we have a number of poll questions on which you can answer. Let me open the poll, and then I will ask you to fill in the possible answers in this poll, starting with the Netherlands. Can I ask you to fill in this first poll question, just to find out where you're coming from? This is also a first test to find out how you can work with this.
You can open it, Amal.
Yeah, I'll open it now. Okay, what you see here, I see that many participants come from the Netherlands. Some come from focus countries of the OKP program. It's good to see. We go to the next question. You'll see many of you come from the Netherlands. I have to share the results with you. Some come from countries overseas, some come from OKP focus countries. I'll go to the next poll. In which domain do you work? Are you from an educational institution? Are you from the public sector, the private sector, an NGO? I see that many of you come from universities. There is also a big group coming from NGOs, some from vocational training and professional education institutions. Okay, that's clear to see. It's definitely also an audience with people from our target groups. The third polling question is about, are you an OKP implementer of training programs, of projects, or scholarship programs? Okay, that's 50-50 almost. So many of you know the OKP program well from implementing interventions, but there's also quite a large group that is quite new with the Orange Knowledge program. That's interesting to know. Here you see the results. The fourth question, do you have experience? A very important question. Do you have experience with setting up ex-post impact monitoring of capacity building and development cooperation programs? This also is very relevant for us to know, to find out what is your background knowledge of the topic. Okay. What you see is here that quite a large part of the audience is not really working yet with ex post impact monitoring. So then this session could be very useful to inform you more about all the aspects of this topic. The next question is about why do you attend this session on impact monitoring? It's also for us important to know why you're attracted to this session. We have a number of questions. You can fill in for this question more options. Okay, more answers are coming in. Okay. Very interesting indeed. You'll see that many would learn more from good practices of impact monitoring, and well, through the presentations you will see lots of examples. But also many participants would like to know more about the OKP monitoring and evaluation framework. And that's good to know because Jolie Franco, my colleague, will in a moment present you much more about that. Okay. That was the first introduction, Paul. I would like now to introduce my colleague, Jolie Franco, who will give a presentation about the monitoring and evaluation framework of the Orange Knowledge Program. Jolie, can I give you the word?
Thank you, Armand. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jolie Franco. I am a colleague of Armand and Lieselotte, working as a country manager in NAFIC's Global Development Department. I'm responsible for monitoring and evaluation, food and nutrition security, and for the Horn of Africa and Colombia project portfolios of the Orange Knowledge Program. So I would like to explain a little bit about how in the Orange Knowledge Program we organized impact monitoring. And I would like to start answering the question why do we want to show impact after our projects and our scholarships have already finished. And the quick answer could be, well, that we were asked by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to do so. But of course, we want to create a support base to safeguard future funding. It is important for us to show to our funder, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but also to the Dutch taxpayers, that these programs we implement together, they do not only strengthen organizations and individuals through scholarships and projects, but in the end, it has an impact on society and it contributes to development. And in addition, we NAFIC and you implementers also should want to show our stakeholders, our own management of our organizations and government in the countries we work, that what we do is relevant. So this is a shared interest. I would like to quickly show you our theory of change. We consider the Orange Knowledge Program as an instrument to achieve the goals of the Dutch Development Cooperation, which is inclusive, sustainable development. And this integrates almost all sustainable development goals. The Dutch Development Cooperation focuses on 4 priority themes: food and nutrition security, SDG 2, sexual reproductive health and rights, SDG 3, security and the rule of law, SDG 16, and water, SDG 6. And as I said, we are we implement the Orange Knowledge Program as an instrument to contribute to this overall goal. We have various tools, modalities. We have individual scholarships, group scholarships, and we have interinstitutional collaboration projects. And broadly speaking, we have two pathways. So the first pathway you already saw is investing in individuals and groups through scholarships. It's to the left side of the theory of change. And strengthening individuals and groups within organization, we achieve strengthening key organizations in the countries we work in. And this is, of course, within the themes of the Dutch development cooperation, sexual reproductive health and rights, and the other themes. And strengthening these key organizations, we contribute in the end to the sustainable development goals and inclusive sustainable development. So this is, yeah, I call it a short track. And then on the left side, on the right side, we have an indirect pathway, a long track in which we can only implement in a selected number of focus countries. And there we have the opportunity to strengthen education institutions through institutional collaboration with Dutch educational institutions. And there we strengthen educational institutions and contribute to a stronger educational system in those countries, which, by the way, is SDG 4. This strengthened educational system produces in its turn the high-skilled graduates that can work in key organizations and contribute to development, and then in its turn to institutional inclusive sustainable development in the countries. Both pathways, the short track and the indirect pathway, which takes longer but in the end has a more lasting and sustainable impact, they are both based on partnerships, and they also contribute to partnerships. So this is also an important instrument, but also an objective of the Orange Knowledge Program. And finally, to increase our impact, we try to integrate the various tools and instruments we have available in the program. In order to measure the effect of our program, we developed a monitoring and evaluation framework, and it is important to stress that we copied the framework of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for development cooperation, and we integrated it integrally in our framework. So all thematic indicators that are part of our framework have not been invented by us, nor have we deleted any indicators, but we just took what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has developed in order to measure whether we are achieving the final goals of the Dutch development cooperation. For the short term, project and training level, scholarship level, and the medium term impact, we developed our own set of capacity development related indicators based on our 50 plus years of experience with these kind of programs, and also based on exchange with our sister organizations in various countries in Europe. And I just shortly want to show you, to give a quick impression what this means. So for the thematic areas, we have thematic indicators. For the projects, the collaboration project, we have specific indicators. The same for the scholarships, we have specific indicators. And well, for the medium term objectives 1, 2, and 3, we also have specific capacity development related indicators. So our monitoring and evaluation system is quite elaborate and seems very complicated, but if you focus at the various part of our theory of change, then it makes sense. And very important is, please take notice that you should pick and choose only those indicators that are relevant for your project and necessary and useful to show effects and progress towards the end goal. We have developed 2 instruments to collect data in order to have information whether we are contributing to the objectives. As most of you know, we have for projects and trainings, we have the ACFO RSR reporting tool. And for individual scholarships, we developed a tracking and tracing system. I will for now only shortly tell something about the tracking and tracing system, because that is relevant also for implementers of projects and trainings within the Orange Knowledge program. So tracking involves sending questionnaires to scholarship holders and their employers before the course takes place and immediately after the scholarship period. And tracing is done quite some time afterwards when the scholarship holder alumni has returned in its organization. So until now, for the Orange Knowledge program, we could only concentrate on the tracking. We sent out 4,000 pre-study questionnaires to our scholarship holders and another 4,000 questionnaires to their employers. Sorry. So my time is over. I have to finish quickly. 2,300 questionnaires have been sent post-study to the alumni and their employers. You can see that response rates for scholarship holders and alumni is much higher than for employers, and that is exactly one of the challenges we encounter. The results are published in our reporting, and you can look at it in your own time. Well, maybe I just I end here with the challenges. Improving the response rate from employers is very important. The general data protection regulation is very complicated to make sure that we remain within this regulation. Of course, changing of email addresses of alumni is a problem in order to be able to trace over longer periods of time. And just the final thing I would like to mention is that we try to explore other more qualitative methods, like complementing the quantitative information from the questionnaires with face-to-face interviews. And an interesting pilot we have been doing lately is tripartite interviews online with alumni and their employers, which was very interesting. Well, I could continue, but my time is over, so work in progress.
Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you very much. I think it's also good to say to the audience that we will share also these slides later on after the session with you, and then you have more time to look also at all this information and also at this theory of change with some small letters on the screen. I think when you have been sending this, when we have sent this to you, it's easier for you to read. I would give just a short moment for possible questions. You can send your questions through the chat box if you have questions about the presentation of Jolie Franke. We have Lieselot Pellenze who will answer all these questions. If everything is clear about this presentation, yeah, I see no questions through the chat box coming in right now, then I would like to. Oh, there's one question. How long after the training has ended is the tracer study done? Jolie, can you answer that question?
Of course. The most interesting is if you can do various tracing questionnaires throughout time. So, of course, to measure impact, some time must have elapsed. And for example, at this moment, we are planning to do a tracer study of scholarship holders from the Netherlands Fellowship Program, which was finished some time ago. So of course it is, it's not that black and white that you can say, well, after 3 years you can do a tracer. It depends also whether someone has done a short course or a master study or even a PhD. Sometimes they need more time to implement their back home action plan, for example. But I would say within 3 years after return of the candidates, it is not really that interesting, but then it will become very interesting. And I would say then after 3 years, and then maybe after another 3 or 5 years, it is very interesting if you can look at impact even after 10 or 15 years.
Thank you very much, Jolie, for this intriguing presentation on the theory of change and on the tracer studies. I see there are quite some questions coming in through our chat box. I propose now that Lieselotte and other colleagues of NAFIC will answer these questions. For now, I will continue with the next presentation, presented by Marlene Roefs and Carolina de Salos of Wageningen Center for Development Innovation, who will give examples how to prepare impact monitoring from a number of projects in focus countries in different parts of the world. Caroline?
Yeah, good morning to all of you. This is Caroline from Wageningen Center for Development Innovation, and together with Marlene, we are actually going to not to present the examples ourselves, but we will leave the words to our partners in the country to tell a bit what they did or what they are doing to measure impact of those NAFIC sponsored projects. So these are some examples of projects we chose. And the first one will be from Indonesia, a project that has ended. And if you want also, if you have questions specifically on that project, Ketut is also in the among us this morning. So he can also answer the question afterwards, but I leave the words then to him, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Ketut Sumandiarsa. I'm a government employee of Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. Nowadays, I'm a lecturer in Fisheries Polytechnic, former of the Jakarta Fisheries University. And at the moment, I'm doing my PhD under the NIS project scholarship. In 2014, my institution granted a project by the government of the Netherlands. The project title was Capacity Building in Fish Processing Technology, NIS IDN 225. It lasts for 4 years from 2014 to 2018. The implementing partners were the Center for Development Innovation of Wageningen University and Research and the Jakarta Fisheries Polytechnic. In that project, my responsibility was as a project coordinator. Nowadays, the fisheries sector increased rapidly, and the demand of competency from the fisheries graduates by the sectors also increased. And the big questions among us were how to prepare the best graduate to fulfill that demand, and how that our curriculum match to the latest competency needed by the sector. So by the project activity, then we find a specific program we call labor market need assessment. In this program, we try to analyze the demand of the sectors based on the growing economy. By understanding the gap between the education and the user need, then we could increase the competency of the graduates in terms of knowledge, skill, and attitude. And then we try to create an open accessibility for the education to find space for collaboration, to do the collaboration with the sector. And the original aims were to define the graduates' competency, the gap between curriculum and the need of the sectors, and to create partnership that never happened before between the institution and the sector. And the last one is how then we develop our curriculum. We use personal interview, including sharing ideas and assured contact for future collaboration in this LMNA program. And then we organize a verification workshop to verify our finding. Some finding that we found and focus on skill gap and labor demand in Indonesia, especially in fisheries sector. And then we found that we need to develop and to revise our curriculum to match the need of the sector. And then we provide a dashboard of the database based on what we found from the interview. And then we start to do the curriculum development. Some follow-up being made, such as we establish a digital center who can manage this program, the system. I mean the labor market need assessment system. And then we create a dashboard that I mentioned before. And then this system improve the existing program we call Alumni Tracer Study Program. There are some challenges we have. For example, like a lack of human resources to keep the system run in terms of information and technology system. And then we have a limitation in budget to do the face-to-face interview and data collection, because our alumni spread to across the nation, which is consists of 1,000 of island. So we need a firm budget to do this kind of interview. And then the most important thing is about the not yet strong policy of the education institution and the ministry in place. I mean, we need a strong policy either from the education institution and also the ministry to do and to personalize this system in full operational system. I think if we solve the problem, then this system will run effectively. Thank you.
So as you could heard, so what they did in that project, they added labor market needs assessment into an existing alumni tracing study in a way to measure the impact of the institute, actually. Now I give the floor to Marleen to present the other examples.
Thank you, Caroline. Yes, I would like to share with you two examples, one from South Africa and one from Uganda, where the systems have not been developed as well as in Indonesia yet. So the first one is in relation to South Africa, where we have an OKP program called Strengthening Education and Agribusiness Interaction for Sustained Employment and Agricultural Development in South Africa. So perhaps we can go to the next slide. Thank you.
Good morning from sunny South Africa. And on behalf of myself, Emil and Marlene, I'd like to just do the short proposal on how we want to quantify the impact of the Orange Knowledge Program on alumni from Elsenburg and Anangeli agricultural colleges in South Africa. What we want to know is whether the OKP project had the expected positive effects on the careers of alumni that graduated from Anangeli and Elsenburg this year. We also want to know what kind of effects the participation in Elsenburg and Anangeli courses had on the careers of our alumni, and then how we can improve on our courses to enhance their impacts. How we plan to do this is first to develop a collaborative evaluation approach to assess these effects. Secondly, we have to be cognizant of the limited means that we have at the moment to do this. The third aspect is we have to be very specific about our results and the theory of change. So we want to determine specifically what Elsenburg and Elangeni wants to achieve in this project, among whom and by when, and also how this is going to happen. The fourth point would be that together with the students and the teachers that participated in the OKP, to develop and implement tools to analyze, collect and report on this information, and then importantly to inform the TVETs about the outcome of their programs and participation in the courses after graduation. A little bit of detail on the tools. We proposed data collection via a survey on an online platform. We want feedback via social media that's acceptable nowadays, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and the likes. We also propose less structured interviews with students and targeted future employers, as well as teachers and then managers of the different institutes. And we also want to develop an app for future capturing, data capturing. What we want to propose is that we utilize local resources for sustainability. CREST, or the Center for Research on Evaluation, Science and Technology, that's currently at Stellenbosch. We would like to entice a postgraduate student to utilize or to use this as a project to develop this set of tools. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
So this was
Elmi Innovative Institute of Agriculture, Business and
Sorry. So this was a presentation by Elmi Lotze from Stellenbosch University. She's also part of the group, by the way. She's one of the participants, so she might be able to add some detail to this a bit later on. Now we will move to Uganda, where Mama Julius, the director of IABC, will explain what he is currently doing and some ideas on how his system can be improved. Enjoy. Can you please go to the next?
Innovative Institute of Agriculture, Business and Capacity Building. We are based in Arua, northwestern Uganda, that is IABC Arua campus, and western Uganda, that is IABC Kigumba campus. We provide courses in agriculture, business and capacity building areas at diploma, certificate and non-formal levels. Our vision is to be a model institution in innovative and creative agricultural, business and capacity building training of skilled and employable human resources. We aim to be responsive to national needs and global competitiveness in Africa. At the moment, we conduct simple tracer studies through our alumni and student WhatsApp platform. Here we ask the students to give us what they do while in the field after the training and the areas where they need to be supported in while in the field. This platform enables us to keep in contact with our alumni and current students. We also advertise courses on this platform. The kind of information we are able to access via WhatsApp are the kinds of jobs the students are employed in and private activities, businesses they engage in after their IABC trainings. They also share possible challenges they face in the field, and we then try to address these challenges through their WhatsApp platform. The staffs are part of the platform and thus provide additional guidance. The challenges the students face is that most of them do not have smartphones and therefore do not have access to social media. There are also power failures and limited internet coverage which hamper communication. Thus, it is not possible for all participants to access internet reliably at the same time. There is also need to standardize the data tracking tools and to increase participation of alumni. In the OKP training for green jobs, we still try, we will try to improve the tracer studies by making students more aware of the benefits of tracer studies for improving course designs and supporting them while they are in the field. We also will improve internet connectivity in the school. We shall develop standard data collection tools for tracer study, connecting also to employers. We shall also assign and train staff to manage tracer study results of students to guide decision making. We shall also design new programs based on the results of the tracer studies, improve the implementation of existing programs using findings from tracer studies, allocate funds for conducting tracer studies by the Institute. I would love to hear more about ways to assess our impact from the other NUFIC partners. The person who has been talking is Julius Mama, the Executive Director of Innovative Institute of Agriculture, Business and Capacity Building. Thank you.
Good. If we go to the next slide, we see there's some general points that we picked from these cases that we presented to you, mainly focusing on sustainability of such a tracer or monitoring system of these organizations. Often they lack the capacity to set it up, but also to maintain it. And that's often because there are champions within the institutes that can actually really pull and push this type of data collection and information collection for informing their programs. We tried as much to find existing systems. What are ways of tracing students? What are ways of collecting information on employers that organizations already have in place that we can build on? So we try as much as possible to build on existing capacity and infrastructure, as well as human resources. During the process of the OKP, we also try to develop the capacity to set up these systems. I think I'll leave it by this. Caroline, will you go to the visualization of measurement of the results?
Thank you, Marleen. Indeed, we were also wondering what type of, we are also looking into ways to show the impact we are having, or as as partners of projects. So we've seen a very good example from Uganda using WhatsApp. And I think WhatsApp is very widely used in Uganda. So that's a good tool there. And of course, you could also think of videos to showcase your impact. So we provided here some links that we are not going to play, but you can watch them afterwards. So the first video is the one also from the same project in Indonesia. And you can see that some alumni are actually using their skills into doing their work within their large communities. So they really explain what they learn and how they are using the skills. So you can, and it's a video made really recently. You'll notice by the face mask. Another video that we presented here is from the project ECART. It's a project from Uganda, which was led by the Gulu University in Uganda and KIT and ICRA. So Mariette Groos here is also among us, so she could tell you, you a bit more if you want. And so then you can see the impact of that project among the alumni and what they can do also within the communities. And another way to showcase impact is also to write articles. So many of us today are working at the university, so maybe we are used also to write articles. And this one that is mentioned in the presentation was written by Walter Odongo and other colleagues from Uganda on the same ECAT project. And they present the tracer tools that they developed within this NAFIC project and the results of that tool. Very good results, by the way. So these are a few examples of way to showcase and to show impacts, not only for accountability purposes, but for the people we are working with in the countries. So that was the presentation of WCDI, and we stay with you for questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Thank you also very much, Marleen. It was an intriguing presentation. Lots of inspiring examples from your projects and also your counterpartners. I would like to give, I would like to look at the chat. Lieselot, do we have one interesting question that can we just put forward now live to Marlene and Caroline?
I think we have to give the participants a little bit of time to type the question in the chat.
Okay, well, that's good. Then we continue with the next presentation, and then all questions will definitely be answered, but we do this also through the chat box. So please continue answering also, please continue also reacting on presentations. You will definitely get your answers. We have a number of colleagues also giving you the answers, and also in the follow-up of this session, you can still ask the contributors to answer your questions as well, if it is about the presentations. Yeah. The next presenter is Gigi Limpens, representing Maastricht School of Management, and coming also with this very interesting case of panel studies. Gigi?
Yes, thank you. So welcome everybody. My name is Gigi Limpens, and I indeed work for Maastricht School of Management. So besides a project consultant, I'm also the monitoring and evaluation coordinator for all of our international projects. But first, before I start the presentation on panel studies, let me briefly introduce Maastricht School of Management. So we are funded as one of the oldest business schools in the Netherlands, and we date back to 1952. So we provide management education, but also management development through our international projects. These are, in Africa, Asia, and South America, and focus on SDGs of FNS, water, and gender, mainly. So why did we choose for impact measurement method of a panel study? We did this because of the pre-described indicators and our level of ambition. So Nuffic has already mentioned that there is a certain type of indicators that we need to follow. These are not chosen by themselves, but by the ministry. And in such a case, we also need to see how can we actually provide answers to these indicators. Besides that, also for the visualization, we have an ambition level to write reports, write articles, make videos, and show what the impact truly is in the organizations, but also in the society in which we implement them. So what is a panel study? So a panel study is a type of longitudinal study that observes changes and sees whether or not they are sustained over time. So are the interventions that we have in the field actually long lasting? So are they having an effect on society in which we want them to have an effect on? Sorry. Then the type of data collection that we do is both quantitative and qualitative, in which we try to use the same set of individuals over a longer period of time. So that's the whole idea of a panel study. You use the same individuals, you inquire information from them at different points in time, and you also try to answer both the questions, how did the impact came about, as well as the extent of the impact. So we don't only look at the target values that are set in the log frame, we also try to see what's the broader picture, what is really the quality of the interventions that we did, how do they really influence the society in which we implement them. And as such, it's also a proven method by both NGOs and by organizations or by governments to see if it's a suitable method to see if it's having an effect on the life course and understanding the interrelationships between events, behaviors, preferences, and future outcomes. So for the next slide, what does this really mean for us at MSM? So of course, there are certain conditions that we need to work with. So within the framework, we have limited resources. This doesn't only mean financial resources, but also, as our colleagues previously already mentioned, the fact that you have certain conditions like the skills and qualities of the people involved in your local partner organizations, your ability to support them after the project duration. So in itself, that means that we will at MSM implement 3 to 4 measurement moments. So 1 still in the project duration as a minimum. And then of course, with the rules and regulations of the reporting, 1 year after the project ends and 3 years after the project ends, and ideally even 5 years after the project ends. We do this because of course, change is only measurable after a longer period of time. Certain projects have a period of 3 years, while other projects have a shorter period. And then it's, the real change is only visible if it had time to evolve and grow. So both quantitative and qualitative data is collected, and the main point that we focus on, which was also identified as a constraint, is that we need to assess the skills of our local partners. So we need to see whether or not our local partners are able to conduct and analyze the panel study data themselves. So when we looked at it, we said, okay, there are certain components when we develop a panel study as an instrument over all of our projects that we need to think about. We were able to do so because we have currently a quite vast portfolio of more than 15 running OKP projects, so we could standardize the process. And that also means is that we say, if you have a project, there's certain types of information that you need. You need to look at the normal project information like the proposal, how big is your project, what are the instruments and the institutions involved in it, but also the location. Certain projects are in one location, other projects maybe even in multiple countries or in multiple regions, and that makes it either more difficult or easy for you to conduct a panel study. Also the sampling methods, you want of course to have a true representation of that society. You don't want to have a set of group of people that may be highly educated, while the impact assessment is also the assessment of the indirect results. So not only the people that you directly trained, but more specifically people that benefit from the training of the people in the organization indirectly. So that also means that you need to evaluate the sample size, what's feasible for you to do, but also in terms of budget and money and resources, but also what's good if you want to produce articles like we are also of interest in. Then criteria, and do you need to give incentives? And lastly, are there sources of information that you can use beyond the panel? So our panel study, to be more precisely, is not used for all medium-term and long-term impact measurements. We mainly focus on the thematic indicators. So we focus, for instance, on an FNS topic or on a water topic when we say we develop a panel study, since, of course, not all indicators can be answered by a person in society, nor can all indicators be answered through just inquiring information from people in our institutions. So it's one of the methods that we use to enable us to answer these questions about impact. Yeah, next. Then we looked at how to start this panel study process in all of our projects, and we said, well, let's first try out a pilot case. So we selected the BFA project as it is one of the earliest OKP projects that we have. So the BFA project is a project in Ethiopia that is, which title is Enhancing Employability and Food Security in Ethiopia Through Quality ATVETs in Horticulture and Dairy. It lasts exactly 3 years, so it started in January 2019 and will end in December 2021. The aim of the project is to necessitate change on local, regional, and federal level by in 2 regions, Oromia and Amhara, through triple helix partnerships in the dairy and horticulture sector. And it does also works with 4 ATVET colleges that will try to change, or the intent is to change the national teacher TVET training programs, and then also extend it to other ATVETs. And the goal in the long-term goal is focused on the water and the FNS topic. So yeah, if we go to the next one, then what did the local project team do? So our luck within our projects is that oftentimes we have a strong local project team. So in this case as well, we had 2 colleagues who worked alongside me and my colleagues in the Netherlands on this. So Akalu Dafisa and Solomon Mogus made it for us able to see whether or not a panel study was actually feasible through a lot of online sessions. So we had discussions about, amongst others, the literacy level of people, the location which we should select, whether or not internet would be an issue, or if they could do it themselves, fill out the questionnaires themselves. Of course, the COVID pandemic had a big influence on our process, because originally we planned to send out researchers that would go into the field. Now that was not possible anymore because of the lockdowns and also because of other conflicts in country. So we had to look at other ways of actually still continuing with this panel study. Then we also, oops, sorry, back. Yeah, So then we also did assessments of the participants. Ideally, as we said, it should be a representation of the society, but you have constraints with selecting the right participants in a certain situation, so in the field. And we saw that engaging two horticulture and dairy associations would be the best way forward with our method. So that's what we do. Also, they helped a lot with questionnaire development. The indicators in themselves are not questions that you can ask a smallholder farmer, for instance. So when we talk about whether or not your productivity has doubled or increased, that's not a direct question that you can ask. So we made a standardized version or questionnaire that we could engage in with the people, the participants, not only for this project, but also for future projects. There were local meetings and desk studies, and they already are in the process of recruiting the participants. So the first measurement moment still needs to happen. We plan to do that still before the end of this year. But we will have to see also how this local situation influences this. Yeah. Then overall, as I already said, we want to standardize this process. So since it took a little bit longer due to COVID to finalize our pilot case, we already initiated other support for our other projects. So we had 2 webinars on this issue of long-term impact assessments. Alongside of it, we developed a guideline document of how to actually develop your panel study with a template for them to fill in, to hand over to us, so that we can evaluate whether or not this is a good foundation for their research. We even made an instructional video for people that were not able to attend the webinars on how to do this. We have online support through email and through video conferences if they have any questions on questionnaire development or on the panel study design. Then we have individual meetings with all team members and joint questionnaire development, which is almost finalized for all indicators. So for all thematic indicators, we make a fixed list, and then we send that out to the project managers so that they can self-select it. And finally, we are now also in the process of doing online monitoring and evaluation course development so that all of our partners, but also people outside of the organizations, are able to learn how to do this long-term impact assessment. As I think the main issue is that what we struggle with is how to verify or how to really assign the value of your panel study to the impact. So how can you say that the interventions that you had an impact in the long term? And that's what we are also currently busy with, and hoping to hear from you guys if you have any suggestions how to improve, but also to learn from other participants and their experiences. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Gigi. That was a concrete, tangible example of this panel study, how to prepare assessments of the impact of your interventions from this Ethiopian example. Perhaps we can bring forward 1 or 2 questions now that came out of the chat box. Lieslot, is there something? Are there interesting questions that you could share now with the audience, and that we could also present to one of the presenters to be answered?
Not yet about Gigi's part of the presentation, so I think we have to give our participants a little bit of time for that. There were a couple of questions on the Wageningen presentation, which have been answered in the chat. So at this moment, I think if we wait a little bit, I'm sure there will be some questions for Gigi.
Okay, but if you look at the presentations of Jolie and Wageningen, Caroline and Marleen, was there also, I saw there was a question about from Geraldine.
Okay, let's go back a little bit. There was an interesting question from Han Aerts about, which is also related to Gigi's presentation and to Jolie, about how to, Han Aerts is asking, how do you standardize the results of your trace and tracking interviews? And how do you interpret whether this was a contribution to your intended program outcomes or not? So also related to attribution of the impact results to the specific intervention. Maybe we can give the floor to Jolie to answer this one.
Thank you, Lieselotte, and thank you, Han. A very interesting question. Of course, the sphere of influence of our projects and our scholarships is limited, And if you look at the medium term and the longer term goals, it's always a contribution you can make, but it's not that you control completely achieving those objectives. So if we would measure progress and a lot of positive indicators on the medium and the longer term, it's a good question whether we may conclude that effectively it was our intervention that made this change happen. I think the question cannot be answered easily. It is of course important that in our monitoring we have to make plausible that we contributed to the changes that happened, and we have to acknowledge, of course, that there are a lot of other factors also influencing and hopefully also contributing to many of the changes we want to make happen.
Julie. Okay, well, you know, let's start now. Sorry, let's start now.
I have one more question in the chat, Armand.
Okay. We have some time, yes. Then I would like to start one question and then we start with the discussions.
Okay, Lars Burema asks, do you have examples of how you finance evaluation after the project has ended?
That's a question, I think, for Wageningen. Could you answer that one?
Yeah, I can give it a go.
Is it a question about specifically about the project's examples of Wageningen?
Not necessarily. No, I think it's more general question.
General question, but from your experience, what could you say about this?
Well, there's a small amount, sort of standard amount of 5,000 euros that is allocated to supporting the support evaluation after the project has ended. So that can be used, but that should mainly be invested, as I see it and we see it most of the time, is to capacitate the organizations we are working with to set up a system or to further develop the systems for assessing the impact of their courses. And obviously this is a very, very small amount, but yeah, really the idea is that the organizations themselves will fund for further tracing and doing research on their sector.
Yeah.
So yes, it's finances are very limited.
NAFIC is also aware of that. We will interact further with implementers how to prepare also this post-project monitoring with the limited means that are on offer, but well, I'm sure that there are also other solutions how to deal with this. Well, let's now start with the key discussions that we have already sent to you earlier this week. The first one, which has already been dealt with during the presentations, examples were given, how to prepare ex-post impact monitoring during the implementation of an OKP training or project. Before we go into this discussion, I would like to approach this topic with some poll questions to have a better comprehension of this question. Could we start with a number of poll questions? Elko? I have a number of poll questions developed with NAFIC colleagues and the presenters. This will help you also to have a better grip of this question. The first one that we would like to present to you: education, training, and other knowledge building institutions are responsible for measuring medium-term impact towards sustainable development goals. We really would like to know your opinion about this. Do you agree or disagree with this? Okay. I see that the majority has answered this question in a positive sense. They all, more than about 80% agrees with this. 20% still disagrees. That's also an interesting element. What kind of argument could you bring in that you are not responsible for this? I think that is something also what we can discuss later on when we bring forward this discussion topic. But you can see that it's not fully shared that there is this responsibility among the educational and training institutions. Can we have the next poll? Yeah, so the biggest challenge to effective ex-post impact monitoring is you can only give one answer. So if you still have some doubts about this responsibility, you can also explain what the challenges in that case would be. Could you please answer one of the options available? Okay. Elko, can you share the results? So what you see is that especially the aspect of limited financial and staff resources is a real challenge in the perception of many people of the audience. Also, prioritizing impact monitoring from the beginning is a difficulty. Assessment of attribution of indirect results, 20% answered that one as a big challenge. This is interesting information for NAFIC, but it also shows that the limited financial possibilities that we can offer through the program is seen as a limitation. Can we go to the next poll, Elko? So, apart from the challenges, there are of course also opportunities with post-project monitoring, post-training monitoring. What is, in your view, the biggest opportunity of ex-post impact monitoring? And again, only one answer is possible. There is also the possibility if you don't see your option available, you can also bring it forward in the chat box. Okay. Elko, can we share the results? So you'll see that evaluating the methodology, so the whole way of trying to measure impact results using the right indicators, working with perhaps also working with the theory of change, is for many an opportunity. Also, better measurement of education and training effects is seen as an opportunity. There are some people that answered also the continuation of the partnerships and assessing whether the results have been sustainable could be also an advantage of this post-project, post-training monitoring. Okay, the next poll. Capacity building and thematic indicators prescribed by NAFIC, as you have been also seen in the presentation of Jolie, are useful to clarify contributions of the Orange Knowledge Program. Well, how is your opinion about this? Okay, can we see the results, Elko? Yeah. So you can see that a large majority is agreeing with this. But there is still a small percentage that doesn't agree. We really would like to know also your arguments why you disagree. Please use also the chat box to explain your opinion on this if you disagree. It's also for us a very interesting learning experience to find out how we can improve this. The next poll. This is about some examples given by the presenters. Do you think that student tracer systems and employer satisfaction studies should be mandatory? Mandatory outputs for in the support of impact monitoring of Orange Knowledge Program interventions. And again, okay, can you share with us the results again, Elko? Yes? Okay, more than 80% has agreed with this. There is also a small percentage, 19% that disagrees. Again, we also would like to hear the arguments in a negative sense. Why do you see this not as, would you not like to see this mandatory? It's important also to learn from you what kind of an alternative you could offer. In any way, we need to have at least a number of instruments that will help us to measure this impact. So if there are also alternatives, please share these with us as well. The last poll question before we go into the, that is already, it was last poll question. Okay. Let's now also share with the presenters this open question. Can you share good examples of good tools and instruments that can support post-project impact monitoring? Now, and there were already, and there was this panel study example of Maastricht School of Management. You had a number of tracer study systems presented also by Wageningen, and also Navik has done the tracer study. Can you also share other examples from your own experience with us through the chat box, which can also be shared with the panel? Or do you have other questions about how to set this up? Practical questions, questions about the methodology. I saw that was one of the advantages, one of the opportunities. Do you have a question that we can pose forward now to one of the contributors of this session, in which you would like to have an explanation, more information how to prepare yourself? Or would you like to share experiences or examples? I'm looking at the chat box. Lieselotte, can we already share something with the panel?
No examples yet or best practices, but I did see some reactions on the yeah, I feel like the issue of attributing the result to the project and how to measure that is difficult for many people. Many people agree to also what Han Aerts was saying. And yeah, but at the same time, people agree that it's important that we do this exercise and learn on how to improve methodologies. I see a comment from Sophie who is asking Gigi. Sophie says, I am curious whether you considered collaborating with other OKP projects in Ethiopia that also aim to contribute to the same medium-term impacts, especially in the longer term.
Yes, so we did look into that. Also, it's not our only running project in Ethiopia at the moment. So we have BFA, which is the first one in BFA South. But I think the main thing that we also need to consider is the fact that they may have different target audiences. So depending on what the society is in which we implement it, we need to also adjust then the panel. But you could have a similar system that's running for multiple projects if it has the same target audience, the same indicators. So that's also what we're indeed considering in certain regions, to do a collaboration between different projects to make it also more cost benefit wise a smart decision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I think, yeah, what I also see from the reaction of Hannah is that we have to create also facilities, discussion platforms, more like these sessions that where project implementers can learn more from each other how to prepare this impact monitoring, whereby NAFIC also yeah, helps with setting up guidelines and instruments and methodology how to do this. I see another chat box questions and reactions coming in. I see that Ketet Sumundiarsa, I think it's important to set up an application through IT so every alumni could update their current job and activity. It should be easy to handle, probably. Yeah, the way how you relate with your alumni, there was this example from Wageningen through mobile phone applications. That's also, well, a simple technology you can use, but I'm sure there are other ways how to keep track with your alumni, how to set up alumni systems and keep your network of alumni participants operational. I think that's also a very important instrument and example to keep track also on how you create impact among your graduates. What have they been learning? What have they been doing with the knowledge through newly developed courses?
I see a very interesting comment as well from Joost Teuben, excuse me if I don't pronounce your name correctly, saying that each project should have its own theory of change, a theory of change linked to the overarching theory of change. This will be used for design, monitoring, and learning. Maybe we can ask Joost to explain a little bit more what he means by this and how he would maybe elaborate a little bit on this comment, because I see other people also like this idea.
Joost, can you unmute yourself? Is that possible?
Yes, I think so.
We hear you. I hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Now, yeah, what we experience is that it is always a challenge to have the same perspective on the outcomes of a project. In the design process, it is not always a fully co-design effort. So when you start working on a theory of change, you will have the same understanding of what you would like to achieve with the project. So if you have that discussion as of the beginning, that theory of change will help you during the whole project cycle when it comes to the design, when it comes to the implementation and the evaluation. So you can always come back to that theory of change and always reflect on what you are doing. And for me, the most relevant part of the theory of change are the assumptions that you discuss together. So is it true that when we do this, that will be the outcome? So that continuous reflection of if it's correct that what you designed as of the beginning, is that still valid in a new context? Now you have the COVID-19, for example, and the whole world is changing. So your impact will change. And that kind of changes you can put in your theory of change. So I will be very much in favor of having the theory of change as of the beginning, and make it also to NAFIC more understandable why in some cases your strategic pathways will be a little bit different. So it is also an argument for you to say, yes, we understand things are changing. So that is the reason I think the theory of change is very relevant. Thank you.
Just before we continue this second discussion topic, Jolie, you were the one that elaborating the theory of change. Can you give a short reaction on this one?
No, of course, I completely agree with Joost, and we did the same. Huh? We did not really invent a complete new theory of change, but we also took the theories of change of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and we aligned with it. So that really makes sense. And talking about aligning and also looking for synergy this way, I think the comment of Mariette Groos of ICRA in the chat is also very useful because she says if you can institutionalize impact measurement in an institution, then you don't have to organize ex post activities and pay for them, but it is already part of an organization's policy and procedures. And I think that is really looking at the point that was mentioned by many people about how can we finance ex post monitoring. Then when it's institutionalized, it is in fact it is solved.
Thank you very much for this answering, Julie. Can we continue with the discussion, the second discussion? I realize I see also now in the chat box, there are numerous reactions coming in. We can't handle them all and address these during the session discussions, but we definitely will make an inventory of all your input and report on this again in a follow-up. Let's continue now for a final moment with this second discussion. So how to visualize contributions of OKP interventions. I again developed some poll questions just to approach this discussion question first. The first poll, visualization of impact is of utmost importance to convince stakeholders of the relevance of OKP. Is this something you can agree with or not? Okay, Elko, perhaps we have to, yes, okay. Now, well, there is a huge majority, you can see that they agree with this. There's one person that is not agreeing with this. Very interesting to know what the arguments are against this. We also would like to hear this in the chat box, if that is possible. Can we go to the next poll question? The most important reason why I think we should create visibility for contributing to the SDGs is, and then please select one answer from the options available. Yeah, I see that raising public support and identifying good practices, innovations, and challenges is the favorite option of many of you. Some also are looking at internal motivation and commitment towards the project improves within my organization. But well, identifying good practices and innovations and also raise public support are important questions. Can you share it, Elko? Yeah. Okay, that also gives a very good insight for Nafik. What is your motivation behind this? The last poll question. My preferred method of creating visibility for the contributions of my work towards the SDGs. We have a number of alternatives again. If there's nothing of your favor in this list of options, then you can always also bring alternatives forward. Okay, I see that can you share the results, Elko? Audio-visual material is especially a favorite. Human interest stories, testimonials, storytelling elements. It's what we have already seen in many capacity building projects. Is a very good instrument to show on an individual level what kind of impact you have been creating. infographics, alumni, also very important. I think you can see here also a balanced share the different options. All of them are applicable, I see, for many of you. Okay, can we go now to the discussion? As I shared already with you, these two key discussion points, and this was the last one. Can you share good examples that show convincing illustrations of OKP contributions to SDGs? And we realize the step to achieving an SDG is, of course, a step that has to be divided in lots of results and consequences and steps again. But how can we make it also clear that from an OKP intervention, we have contributed at least an element? Now, do you have examples, experience, or best practices from your own projects, from your own organization, which you would like to bring in? Or do you have questions on how to do this, how to visualize this? Again, there is the possibility to bring forward questions for the panel. Lieselotte, I see Jolie has an important contribution from her work from evaluating also Belgian programs. Jolie, can you explain this more in detail?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to take time because of course we want to have contributions from our participants, but before the session ends, I really wanted to share these two evaluation reports from our Belgian colleagues, which are really interesting, and I think we can learn a lot about what they have done. They have invested a lot in evaluation, impact evaluation. So I can really recommend these two evaluation reports, not only because I contributed to them, but I really think that we can learn a lot of our sister organizations and what our neighbors are doing. So have a quiet look after this session to these two reports.
I see also there was a reaction of Mama Julius, one of the African presenters, the example from Uganda in the presentation of Wageningen. There was a reaction from Mama Julius. We need also to standardize certain tools for tracer studies to be shared at global level so that we can be able to compare performance of their implementations across the globe. I read here also that how can we learn from each other's systems, methodologies, and techniques that we use to set up tracer studies. I think that is also something where projects can learn from each other. There are numerous apps and techniques available, but it's always good to hear from others how they have already been experiencing these apps, and especially for mobile telephones. I think that's also a very good thing that Nuffic could facilitate. Lieselotte, did you see other questions, reactions coming in through the chat box?
About the examples of creating visibility, not yet, except for the one from Jolie. If I go a bit further up, still some comments about attribution and impact measuring. Lots of ideas, like you said, from Julius Mama.
But that is an important element, how to measure the attributions of OKP towards SDGs. I understand that that's quite a complicated question to answer and requires also, a number of steps that you have to take before you get there. Attributions. How did you see this this question, Caroline? How is Wageningen trying to make it visible, also to show that it has contributed, is able to contribute to a number of these sustainable development goals?
Yeah, thank you. I was really reflecting because we had discussions and back and forth with Mariette and Joost on the chat. And I was like, okay, so there's no denying that we want to contribute to the to achieving the SDGs. There's no denying on this. And now the question is, are we also obliged to measure this contribution towards the SDG? And then maybe it's a yes, but then it's difficult, huh? Then, because it needs certain capacities from our side, but also from our partners in the countries, huh? So I was really reflecting, how can we build that capacity to really measure those, you know, towards the measure the impact towards the SDGs. And I was wondering whether it could be part of those tracer studies. So I was also reflecting, huh? And because in some countries, so I'm really involved in this OKP project in Burundi, and I realized that we are so much behind, so that it's a lot of steps to be taken already to motivate the TVETs Institute to also do some kind of impact measurement of the work they do. So more at capacity building. And then it's the first steps. And then after you're towards the SDGs, like the indicators that Jolie was presenting on, you know, doubling production, etc., for the agriculture or the food and nutrition security. So I don't know. I don't have right now. I don't have a concrete example on how you can actually do that. And I see that there's some organizations are maybe less prepared for that because they still have to make the steps on actually measuring impact of their intervention. You know, basic intervention.
Yeah, well, it's a learning process where I think you really have to connect the different projects and training programs and the implementers. I think here it is important also to create synergy between the projects to learn from each other. Gigi, is there something that you would like to?
Ik zag een meeting in mijn.
Gigi, Lieslot, your microphone is still on. Gigi, do you have one example that you, as a last contribution on visualization, how is MSM this doing?
Well, maybe a bit of a combination also with the last question before on how to attribute the impact. That's exactly what our main thing is, why we did the panel study as an ID, because we were looking at the indicators and stating indeed, like, how can the interventions that we do actually lead to this indicator, and then in the larger picture to this SDG. And that's why we took the approach of trickling down. So looking at the indicator and addressing it, making it into questions that would be able to measure in the field, also with a certain group. So that's why we say tracer studies in itself will not do it, because if we only include people that are involved in the interventions, then we don't know how it will impact the broader society. So we say we select a group of people that are not participants of the study, but are also with a control group then on the other side, so that we can say, okay, this is the effect that maybe training on, let's say, FNS or water management or irrigation or anything like that. There were people that attended that training. Those people go back to their home village. They try to disseminate that knowledge. What of that knowledge is actually passed on? So we then go to that village as an example, and then include these people in the panel study versus people that or another village that was not in our scope of the project, and then we can compare the results. But the attribution is the biggest issue, because of course there are a lot of other external factors that have an influence on it. So COVID-19 also has a big influence, especially on the FNS topic, because productivity and yeah, even there are countries that couldn't harvest because there was a lockdown. So already a baseline study will be skewed. So you have a lot of factors, well, that will compromise your results. But we say with this panel study approach, at least we try to make a bridge between people that were involved in the project and people that are living in the broader society in which the project is being implemented. And that's also in a visualization. We try to then not only include the participants in a written testimony, but indeed have videos about them, try to have these narratives, which are also part, of course, of the indicators listed by NUFIC. So I think this testimonials is a big part of the visualization of what the impact is. That's more important to us than just the numbers of having a target value set for 100,000 people reached that would have improved their productivity. I think it's more important to see how did they do that? What is really the the change that that happened if they were not involved, if the project didn't happen.
That is a very good elaboration of how you're trying to combine not only the hard quantifiable indicators that Nafik is asking, but also presenting testimonials, but also including target groups that are not directly involved in the project and in the training at the educational and training institutions. I think that is also a very good addition to this discussion. Now, looking at the time, I think we'll have to close this session now. But it does not mean that you cannot submit reactions or experiences or examples anymore. You can also still ask questions to the chat box. I think we leave this open for 10 more minutes so that you have some time to formulate questions. What we will do is, apart from the recording of this session, we will also send you a report of this session, including also the questions that have been submitted through the chat box and our answers. So please, if you have more practice and experiences and reflections, you can always send them also. If you want to elaborate more with pictures or with links, you can also send your reaction to okp@nafik.nl. Please use then the reference OKP event impact session. Now, what we definitely will do as Nafik is to collect all your findings and reactions. We will make an inventory, as I said, and we will discuss this again with our own sounding board. And where possible, we will use this also for further recommendations and possible revisions in our own guidelines on impact monitoring. Now, I thank you all for this input and for your interaction and for your inspirational examples. I would like to thank wholeheartedly the speakers again for their contributions and inspiring examples, my colleagues who have been helping me to organize this wonderful OKP session. And last but not least, of course, you as participants, bringing in also your own experiences, your own ideas, and your answers on our poll questions. It helps us a lot to improve the way we set up impact monitoring. I thank you all, and hopefully we see many of you back again in the other OKP events coming up next week. One last question. An evaluation formula will be put also in our chat box through a link. If you want to evaluate this session, please feel free to do so through this evaluation form. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.